Lewis was driving his Model 3 in the express lanes of I-95 in Deerfield Beach, Florida. The two express lanes were merging into a single lane, and everyone was using the zipper merge method. Except for two drivers, that is, the driver of a Lexus and of a Model 3 behind Lewis. They weren't in agreement about who should merge behind Lewis. The Model 3 and the Lexus began driving alongside each other, and we can see some intense hand gestures going on between them. The woman driving the Model 3 backed off, and it seemed like the incident was over, but actually, it was only getting started. Lewis could see in his rearview mirror that the Lexus driver kept swerving onto and off of the shoulder until a police car pulled up next to them, at which point they began driving normally. Just as the police car passed them, traffic in the express lane came to a complete stop up ahead. The Lexus driver braked and swerved to the shoulder to avoid rear-ending Lewis, but the Tesla plowed straight into both of them. Lewis says that at the moment of impact, autopilot took over and applied the brakes and swerved to the right to avoid a collision with the car in front of him. His theory is that the Tesla driver was distracted while road raging with the Lexus, and the Lexus driver had been watching the Tesla in the rearview mirror and anticipated that she wouldn't stop. That's why he headed for the shoulder. Police determined that the driver of the red Tesla was at fault, and she was cited for reckless driving. Lewis's Tesla, which he picked up only a month before this incident, was deemed a total loss. Remember Emilio from last week's episode, whose mother was rear-ended in a Model X, and his dad found the suspect and pretended to be a good Samaritan until the police could arrest him? We told you he rents his Tesla on Turo and that you could rent a piece of Wham Bam memorabilia. Well, someone from Indonesia took our suggestion and rented out Emilio's Model 3. While he was driving down I-5 in California, he fell asleep behind the wheel and crashed into a semi-truck hauling a trailer stacked with wood. Emilio told us he called Turo's support on the phone after sending us these images, and they told him the Tesla is a total loss. How do we fix this? I guess all we can do is tell our viewers to stop renting Emilio's Tesla. Chris was driving his Model Y on I-94 in Portage, Indiana when he suddenly found himself in the middle of a high-speed police chase. This was the first time Chris had ever witnessed a real-life police chase, and he said it really looked like it had come straight out of a Hollywood movie. A Dodge Charger was being chased by a bunch of police Chargers. As you can see, there were quite a few. Mike and Ryan also witnessed a police chase, and I think the way this one ended is probably a bit more common. They were driving on Staten Island when a Dodge Challenger flew past them with the police in hot pursuit. I always have to be careful what I say with these submissions. You guys really get angry in the comments when we get the Dodges mixed up. It's a real Challenger. The fleeing Dodge driver took a turn too fast and crashed into a wall. As Mike and Ryan approached the accident scene, they saw the cops detaining the individual amongst a mess of car parts. Score 1 for the good guys. Slim was driving his Model 3 westbound on a highway when, out of nowhere, the Mustang in front of him lost its hood. Does the "Built Ford Tough" slogan apply to Mustangs as well? From the footage, there doesn't appear to be any damage to any other vehicles. Slim's Tesla got a scuff smaller than his fingernail on the passenger's door panel. Slim decided not to file an insurance claim. The damage appears minimal and can be buffed out, and his car has a ceramic coating on it. Wait, don't skip this part. It's not an ad. At least, not like you're thinking. We just wanted to remind you about our newest channel, Wham Bam Security Cam, where we've been publishing episodes for 10 weeks now. It's the same Wham Bam format you know and love, but with security camera footage instead. If you've never checked it out, we've made it easy with a new video highlighting the top 30 clips we've shown so far put together into one mega episode. For the next week, we'll be giving away free Wham Bam hoodies to 10 random submitters whose security camera clips are accepted to be in an episode. Click the link in the description or scan this QR code to go watch the video now. This submitter pulled into a crowded parking lot and pulled into an open spot, then ran into the store. What they didn't know was that an Audi driver had evidently been waiting for that spot. When the car next to the Tesla pulled out, the Audi driver pulled into that spot instead, pulling up extra close to the Tesla so they could do this. The woman driving the Audi got out, slamming her door into the side of the Tesla, then kicked one of its wheels. When the Audi driver returned to her car a few minutes later, she went for a knockout door ding in the second round. She slammed the door as hard as she could, twice. That's 3 strikes and she's out. The video was provided to the police, who then tracked down the driver but didn't bother citing her for a hit and run. Instead, they gave her a stern talking to. This all feels very Canadian. The submitter filed a claim with the Audi driver's insurance provider, and they agreed to pay for the damage after seeing the video. The submitter sent along a shout out to Wayne at Dent to Go, who fixed the dent perfectly. The total cost of repairs was $700 US. If the panel had needed to be repainted, the cost would have been somewhere between $2,000 and $3,000 US. Ashish was driving north at around 50 miles per hour on a wet interstate in San Jose, California, when his Model Y hydroplaned and crashed into the median barrier. The car was towed away and declared a total loss by Tesla Insurance. Police responded to the scene to control traffic. Ashish told us he's an avid viewer of our channel but never thought he'd be making a submission. He wanted a shout out for his wife Anusha. The next video is from the same day and shows the same thing happening to another car on another California highway. Gio was driving along when the Fiat next to him hydroplaned, sliding from the carpool lane to the other side of the highway unscathed. Gio kept driving as there was no place to safely stop and everything seemed okay. This submitter failed to slow down quickly enough when he encountered a corner covered in snow. He hit the snowbank, and he told us there's now a slight crack in the bumper and some broken clips on the lower trim piece. Other than that, this lesson didn't cost him anything. Eli had just picked up his father from the airport when he stopped at a red light on a 35-mile-per-hour road. A stopped truck driver suddenly decided to ram into the Hyundai behind him, pushing it into Eli's bumper, all while the light was still red. Eli was using FSD Beta 10 at the time, but he told us his car didn't make any evasive maneuvers to avoid the collision. The truck driver was cited for following too closely, which we think is a bit of an understatement. Joseph was driving his Model 3 when traffic ahead of him came to a complete stop. Joseph started to slow down, but he told us he decelerated too slowly. So the Tesla fully applied the brakes on its own to stop in time. After Joseph had been stopped for 2 full seconds, a Hyundai slammed into him. When they pulled into a parking lot, a heated argument ensued. The other driver screamed at Joseph and threatened to call the police because he had slammed on his brakes. And when Joseph offered to show them his Teslacam footage, they started screaming at him for having a computer in his car. Joseph filed an insurance claim when he got home. The next day, he got a call from the other driver's insurance provider accepting liability. They told him the only reason for such a quick turnaround was because of the dashcam footage. If you don't have a dashcam, check the description for our recommendation. Tony was driving his Model 3 in Fort Myers, Florida, when an RV driver failed to yield and forced the driver in front of him to slam on the brakes. Tony stopped, but the driver behind him didn't have time to avoid rear-ending him. Guess what kind of car they were driving? Roll the jingle.
Jump in! Honda bumped! Honda bumped! Yeah, Honda bumped!
Tony wasn't even surprised that he'd finally been Honda bumped. Both drivers filed insurance claims, and he's still waiting for a repair estimate. Family Cruisin' wasn't cruising, he was drag racing against a minivan. He raced his Tesla Model X Performance against an old Dodge minivan on a drag strip, and somehow he got his butt kicked. He told us he had a full charge and the car was in Ludicrous Plus mode. Somehow he still lost the race. His only option now is to buy a Model X Plaid and ask for a rematch. I'm no drag strip expert, but I'm going to assume that the van was slightly modified. What do you think gave it all that power? An aftermarket muffler? Flame stickers? Leave a comment with your guess. Family Cruisin' sent along a shout out for his family members Nick, Matt, Audrey, and Sarah. They watch our new videos together every Sunday before church. This submitter was driving his Model 3 in Belgium. We're gonna run this video in slow motion so we have time to tell you the backstory. The submitter told us he was legally overtaking the car in front of him when he saw two drivers ahead were braking because the first wanted to make a 90-degree left turn. Traffic had already stacked up against the vehicle in the front, so he had no way to merge back into the lane. The submitter told us that overtaking cars have the right of way against someone turning across opposing traffic, so he decided to continue. Just before overtaking the car, he slowed down and flashed his headlights to get the driver's attention, then proceeded, all perfectly legal. Unfortunately, the driver had no clue the submitter was coming up behind him and turned in front of the submitter. The other driver immediately raised his hand as if to say that the submitter was at fault for the collision. When he got out of the car, the first thing he asked our submitter was if he'd seen his turn signal. After sending his dashcam footage, the submitter's insurance provider immediately responded that his overtake was legal and that the other driver was in the wrong. The total cost of repairs was over $10,000 US. While Lawrence was on break, he noticed Iron Man had parked a Tesla outside.
This is hands down the coolest Tesla I've ever seen in my life. Holy cow.
Luckily, the driver was inside shopping, so Lawrence asked for permission to take a video and upload it to YouTube. Thankfully, she agreed. Lawrence happened to be wearing his Marvel Avengers hat and gave it to her to give to her brother, the owner of the car. Nice job, Lawrence.
Wham, bam, we got a Patreon man. Please support the show.
It's a real challenger.